oh my God, NIO CEO wrote an annual letter to NIO's employees, and it got leaked. And I don't know if you guys have seen that letter, but in it, it's very bleak. He talked about how in 2023, they did not reach their expectations. And that is, of course, they only delivered 160K vehicles, which is around 65% of the target. And he talked about how there's so many areas to improve, and then they would have to use every cent well, save on every single kilowatt hour of electricity that they don't need to waste, save on every single piece of paper that they don't need to waste, and use investors' money carefully, and that they would only focus on important things first. So obviously, when this got leaked, it did spook a lot of people, but this isn't actually very different from the 2023 annual letter that he wrote 1 year earlier, where he talked about how resources will be limited for certain projects. Different departments might be consolidated into one. Employees, teams might be forced to do more than what's on the table. So they are definitely in cash conservation mode, trying to save as much money as they can. Okay. And one of the very interesting things that they're doing right now here in China, and you might have noticed this, is that whenever I post my monthly deliveries video, I talk about deliveries, but I also talk about infrastructure. All right. Infrastructure deployment, of course, swap stations, charging stations, but also NIO houses, NIO spaces, service centers, etc. Now, funny enough, in December, the information about that in December was not provided. All right, so they did not. Usually, every month they boast about last month how many swap stations we built, how many, all that kind of stuff, and also NIO houses, etc. But in January, they did not talk about the stats for December when it comes to NIO houses and NIO stores, and it's pretty clear that they are slowing things down for NIO houses and NIO spaces. And here in China, they do have very strict requirements for these NIO houses and NIO spaces, and if the metrics for these don't look that good, they're either relocated or closed down right away. NIO used to have a NIO space at Sam's Club, and you would think that would be a perfect place. Sam's Club, and lots of wealthy people shop at Sam's Club. But that store was actually a terrible performing store because, first of all, it was located at the exit. People had a bunch of stuff that they just bought, and they're not going to leave it outside and go check out the car, right? They got to put that in their own car, and it was just a non-performing store, and they closed it down. And lots of other stores here in China, NIO spaces and NIO houses, mostly NIO spaces, if it's non-performing, they're going to close it down. It's pretty simple. All right, but it seems like now they're also slowing down on the NIO house deployment. All right, and NIO space deployment, new stores. They're not opening new stores as much, partly because to save money, but also probably because when the sub-brand launches, they have to dedicate some money towards opening stores for those, for the sub-brand, all right, sub-brand stores. So it would be a big cash burden if they were opening NIO stores and sub-brand stores at the same time. NIO stores seems like it's taking a pause for now. What other things am I seeing? Well, definitely a reduced amount of workers, people at the service center, and also the stores inside. You're not seeing as many people. Obviously, a lot of them got laid off during the big layoff. But as usual, if it's non-performing people, they gotta go. All right. And interestingly enough, after Tesla's just disastrous first week deliveries, right, down 79%. Basically from the week before, Tesla actually is implementing surveillance policies on their employees in stores for them to do their work, and if they don't do their work, they get fired on the spot. Now, NIO's been doing that quite a while, and they have had strict rules because every single customer that goes into the store is very precious, and should not be ignored, right? Basically. So they've always had these strict policies to make their workforce much more efficient. The other thing that you're noticing right now is a lot of the freebies are going away. That is definitely a good thing that NIO shareholders want to hear. Freebies, yeah. So, for example, before, during NIO Day, if you went to any one of the stores, you could get a free drink, basically, and snacks and all sorts of free stuff. And they've pretty much started removing those, and also free gifts and all that kind of stuff. I mean, like, it doesn't really make sense to give so much free stuff, and so they're pulling back on that as well. But what's also very interesting, he said that the next few years is going to be very intense, and that's also my personal expectations. And a lot of you guys have criticized the CEO for, I guess, reckless spending, right? Reckless spending. But here he is finally coming out and telling his team and everybody that we need to be cautious about where we put our money, which I think is very good, and that only focus on things that will bring value to NIO's balance sheet and improve the balance sheet, things that will help out with the balance sheet, because it is pretty clear that they can't just burn money forever, right? They can't burn money forever, even though I guess the CEO could easily get money from other people, from other investors, but of course it comes at a price dilution or more debt, etc. He could definitely get more money from the government, but it'll always come at a price. Nothing's free, so they do have to be careful about where they spend their money. But it does seem like NIO House deployments are being slowed down quite a bit. The airport NIO House in Shanghai, that's still giving out free drinks and everything. People don't fly very often, so perhaps in their mind it might be worth it, to do that. But obviously they should be charging some money for all those drinks and stuff. And I honestly believe, right hand to God, that NIO will definitely survive, no problem at all. Like, NIO will not go bankrupt. I mean, this paints a very pessimistic picture, what he said, but I don't think NIO will go bankrupt, because they have access to lots of money, and the Anhui government really loves them. They're not gonna let NIO go down, all right? But we are approaching the edge. We are running towards the cliff, but I don't think we'll fall over the cliff, all right? And that's why NIO is a very interesting investment opportunity for me, because it's significantly undervalued. Or just a couple weeks after ET9 launch, and then people seem to all of a sudden forget about the technology that NIO has and the infrastructure that NIO has and how technologically advanced NIO is. People just seem to all forget about that and just focus on cash burn and this statement from the CEO. Look, in the next 1 or 2 years, 2024, 2025, a lot of guys won't make it, all right? But NIO is 100% gonna make it. And yesterday I made that video about deliveries, weekly deliveries. NIO only delivered 3,000. It looks really bad, but relative to the other guys, 1,400 from Xpeng and only 3,200 from Tesla. Tesla, guys, only delivered 200 more vehicles that week than NIO did. So, NIO's performance is absolutely fantastic relative to those guys. If you just look at it in a vacuum, yeah, of course, NIO's performance doesn't look good, but think about it going forward. Yes, it's going to be even more competitive, even more intense, but NIO is always going to have a very dominant market share of the luxury EV segment, albeit, all right, the EV segment might decrease in overall deliveries because of policy change, etc., but NIO will still have a fantastic market share. So NIO is doing all the right moves to save on money and not waste it on random stuff. However, I want to add a big asterisk to that, because the CEO has said that in multiple previous interviews that R&D is not a place that they're going to cut costs. So R&D has always been the biggest expense for them for quite a while. So it'll be interesting to see what R&D expense is going to look like this year. Perhaps, since a lot of the development and everything has already been finished, perhaps R&D might be a bit lower because they were focusing on so much stuff last year, right? You got all the different NT 2.0 vehicle models being launched. You had to do R&D on that, and then also the sub-brand car and then ET9 as well for launch. So now I think this year we might actually see R&D expenses decrease substantially, in my personal opinion. It just all goes towards cost savings, and hopefully investors will be satisfied.